Winning Blueprint presents.
Draft Zone.
Welcome to the Draft Zone. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. This is the 2013 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. And what we aim to do with this series is take a look at every single team in the National Football League's 2013 NFL Draft. Today we'll be talking about the Carolina Panthers and what they were able to do in the 2013 NFL Draft. We'll look at every single pick made by the Panthers, break it down using our baseball grading scale, single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series, as we can never tell if these players will pan out or not in the league. And if it's your guy, get your guy when you feel you need to get your guy. Your second round selection could be someone else's first. Your third round selection could be someone else's fourth. You don't know when other teams want to pull the trigger on your guy, so you need to take your guy when you feel the need to take your guy. So there are no strikeouts here in this draft wrap-up, as we can never tell if a team reached for a player or not. So we'll look at the Panthers, break down each and every pick made, give them a grade. We won't just look at the pick and the player made itself, even though that's a huge part of what we'll be grading out. We'll also look at what that player could mean for the team in 2013 and possibly moving on. We'll look at how that player was selected, where that player was selected, and a lot of other things. And so there's a lot that goes into giving grades out for individual picks. However, we'll give each pick a grade, and then at the end we'll get an aggregate score for the Carolina Panthers draft as a whole, and then we'll move on from there. So I've got my draft board behind me. No more handy-dandy pointer, as we all know. Next man up, magic wand present. Let's get to the draft board and do some work with the Carolina Panthers in their 2013 NFL Draft. So we look at the draft board for the Panthers, and immediately the first thing that I take a look at is the needs. Defensive line. This shouldn't be a need for the Carolina Panthers, but it is. This is one of the areas your ex-GM, Marty Hurney, failed you at. In 2011, he drafted two defensive tackles in the third round, McClain and Fua, and they really haven't panned out the way that you wanted them to. McClain's been battling injuries. Fua has been really inconsistent, and so that cupboard is pretty bare. I love Dewan Edwards. I was a little nervous because the Panthers allowed him to walk away initially in free agency, only to bring him back. I was a little nervous because I didn't know what was going on there, but I said, look, you don't have enough defensive tackle help to be allowing your best one to walk away. But they brought him back. Now you got to go and get some help. And I told you when this process initially started, and when I did my mock draft and when I was talking about the Panthers and what they were going to get in this draft, I told you your new GM, Dave Gettleman, likes to build from within and out. And look, that's the way to do it in the National Football League. He's an old school GM. He believes in building your lines first, offensive, defensive, and then spreading outward. And that's the way you got to do it in this league. If you don't have an offensive line, then the rest of your parts don't matter. You can have the best quarterback, running back, and receiver in the league. If your offensive line isn't getting it done up front, doesn't matter. Those guys won't have the time nor space to operate. So offensive line is important. So is defensive line as well. You don't keep those linebackers clean, you're not getting pressure on the quarterback. You can't stop the run. None of that other stuff matters. So you look at receiver. Cam Newton needs more weapons in his arsenal. You want Cam Newton to take that next step. You want him to become an elite young quarterback in this league. Give him the targets to throw the football to. If Steve Smith wasn't on this roster at receiver, I don't know what this Carolina Panthers team would do at receiver. Okay? They would have one of the worst receiving corps in the league if not for Steve Smith. And I really like what you're getting out of Brandon LaFell. But he's going into his contract year. He's been inconsistent at times. He's been injured. I want to see more, and I want to see more consistency from Brandon LaFell. But I like what LaFell is turning into. Now, will you be able to hold on to him? And can you add to that receiving corps? You need more. We'll talk about that in a second. Offensive line. I just talked about the defensive line. Same goes for the offensive line. Your offensive line was a mixed bag last year, full of injuries. Your center went down. Khalil went down. You had a lot of injuries along that offensive line. You had one guy be a constant for you, Jordan Gross, but the rest of your line has been in flux. You need offensive line help. Cornerback. Your cornerback situation, your whole secondary for that matter, was abysmal last season. You could use some help at cornerback and at safety. Both of those are needs on this board, and so that rounds up the needs for the Carolina Panthers. You look at this board: round, pick, players, position, school. First round, 14th overall selection, defensive tackle out of Utah, Star Latu-Lele. I told you that Dave Gettleman wanted a defensive tackle in the first round and that you were going to get one. Now, I didn't perceive Star Latu-Lele being the option here because I didn't think he would be on the board at 14. I thought this guy was too good to pass up, and I thought someone would snatch him up along the way before the Panthers could get their hands on him at 14. You got lucky. You got lucky. You lucked up and got potentially the best defensive tackle in this draft. Now, I myself was a Sheldon Richardson guy. That's who I had you slated to get. But this guy isn't a bad second option, okay? In fact, he might end up being better than Sheldon Richardson. For me, it was 1A and 1B between he and Sheldon Richardson. And you got a really good football player. Probably one of the better ones in this whole entire draft. Some people were scared away by the medical, and I'm pretty sure the Panthers did their homework. They checked him out. He cleared medical waivers. They felt really good about what he could bring to their football team. They made the selection. I don't know what the other teams had going on, if they thought that the medical was something that they couldn't overlook or not. But they really missed the boat on this guy. Star Latu-Lele, 6'3", about 305, 310. Very athletic guy. I mean, this is what you want at defensive tackle. He can knife in the backfield, create havoc. He can disrupt plays before they get started. He's even a guy that, if you're not careful, he'll get pressure on the quarterback too. He can move down the line. He's not a guy that is just a space eater in the middle and you're not going to be able to move him. This guy can run down the line. He can sort through the garbage, and he can make plays. And I think that the Carolina Panthers have found the perfect complement to Dawan Edwards. And you got yourself a steal here in the first round. Literally. Because at 14, that's a great value pick right there. I did not think Star Latu-Lele would be there for you to select at 14. And frankly, you got lucky. Your general manager was probably smiling and grinning from ear to ear. Gettleman is a guy that likes to build within and then fan out. Here's your guy that is going to be one of the bricks of that foundation of this defense that needs to be revamped. Star Latu-Lele, defensive tackle out of Utah, is the man. He has the potential to be a Warren Sapp type of force on your defensive line. The only question is, how will the Panthers decide to use him? If they give him opportunities to get one-on-one matchups, this guy is going to win, and he's going to win big. And if he wins, he's going to get sacks. He's going to get in the backfield. He's going to cause a lot of disruption in the backfield. And if you're the Panthers, that's exactly what you're looking for on your defensive line. First round, 14th overall selection, defensive tackle out of Utah, Star Latu-Lele is an absolute no-doubter home run. You can put it on the board, Panthers. It's a home run in the first round with the defensive tackle out of Utah, Star Latu-Lele. Second round, 44th overall selection, defensive tackle out of Purdue, K'Wan Short. Look, the Panthers simply doubled up. They said double our money, double or nothing. We got one. Why not go ahead and get two and get it out of the way right now? They don't want to have to revisit this position again. They went and doubled up in 2011 when Marty Hurney decided to spend 2 third-round selections. It did not work. Dave Gettleman said, look, I'll do you one better. I'm going to ante it up. I'm going in the first round and getting my first 2 picks out of the way, first and second, and I'm done. I'm getting these defensive tackles. I'm getting my defensive line where I want it to be, and then I'm moving on. And that's exactly what he did. K'Wan Short, the defensive tackle out of Purdue, has the potential to be one of the best defensive tackles in the National Football League. Problem is, you don't get the maximum effort out of this guy on every single snap. When this guy is fresh, he's like an uncaged beast. When this guy gets tired, he's like Albert Hainsworth. Worthless. So the key here for you is keep K'Wan Short fresh. When this guy is fresh and he's engaged and he's mentally stimulated, there's not many defensive tackles in this league more talented than K'Wan Short. But when this guy gets gassed and he is exhausted, forget about it. It's like dead weight on the football field. So you have to find a way to keep this man fresh. And with the rotation that you have now, you've got several defensive tackles that you can put in and out of the game. There's no reason for K'Wan Short to be out on the field gassed. You've got a rotation now with Dewan Edwards, with Star Lotulelei, with K'Wan Short, with some of the other guys, Sione Fua, and other guys that are still on your roster, that you can run in and out of the game to keep guys relatively fresh. So K'Wan Short should not be out on the field sucking wind, looking and begging to get off of the field. You keep this guy fresh. He's agile. At 298, he's a guy that can knife into the backfield, make plays. He's very disruptive. When he's on his game, there's not many better. He can get in. He's very strong at the point of attack. Heavy hands. And he uses his hands very well. When he's mentally engaged and stimulated, he's getting offensive linemen's hands off of him. And that's the first step. You beat the hands. You beat the body. You're gone. And he does a great job of disengaging, getting them off of him, winning that battle, moving them out of the way, and getting in the backfield. So if you can keep K'Wan Short fresh, you got yourself a beast in the second round. So in the second round, 44th overall selection, defensive tackle out of Purdue, K'Wan Short is a triple. He's got all the tools, all the tangibles that you look for in a really good defensive tackle. Now it's your job to put him in the right positions to make plays and to keep this guy fresh. Keep that motor running hot. The minute that motor goes cold, he's of no use to you. The way to keep that motor running hot is to keep this guy relatively fresh. Fresh. So, you look at this draft board and the needs, and Dave Gettleman right after defensive line, twice. He didn't waste any time. Let's get the defensive tackle position out of the way. And that's exactly what he did early on in this draft with his first 2 picks in the first 2 rounds, getting Star Lotulelei and K'Wan Short. So now we move on to the 4th round. Pick 108, offensive guard out of Valdosta State, Edmund Kugbila. Now, Kugbila, for me, is an interesting prospect. You need offensive line help. Edmund Kugbila can give it to you. Now, this is the thing with Edmund Kugbila. He's got a little bit of experience out at tackle and at guard. But to me, he's strictly a guard in the National Football League. He moves well, but I don't think he moves well enough to put out at tackle consistently. In a pinch, sure, this guy can play tackle for you. He had 10 starts in college at tackle, but 22 of his college starts came at the guard position, and I think that's where he more naturally belongs in the National Football League. Teams are going to be intrigued by his size. He has some of the longest arms in this draft class at 6'5", with those humongous tree vines that he calls arms at 325 pounds or so, Edmund Cook-Billa is a very interesting prospect for coaches. They want to get their hands on this guy. They want to teach him the techniques and the finer things of the offensive line positions of guard and tackle. They want to put this guy out there and allow him to work. Now, when you see that kind of size, you want to put it at tackle. You so desperately want to put a guy out at tackle that's 6'5" with long arms. But that doesn't make you a tackle. You have to be able to move those feet. And I think he moves a lot better than I give him credit for. But I'm not convinced that he moves well enough to be a tackle. Now at guard, I think this guy can be a really good player for you because he's got long arms. So it's going to be hard to beat him inside when he's got help to both sides of him at tackle and at the center position. So he's a guy that I think if you put inside at guard, he's strong enough. Here's my problem. And you know how I am about offensive linemen. He's a nice guy. And nice guys finish last in the National Football League. You got to be mean on the offensive line. The guy in front of you wants to pounce on you. You got to get him before he gets you. It's a dog-eat-dog world on the offensive and defensive lines in the National Football League. In the trenches, it's nasty. It's nasty down there. It's a battle. And sometimes I think he's not willing to take it to that next level. You got to be able to reach down deep and get that grit and grind and just get nasty. You want to pummel that guy in front of you. Edmund Cook-Billa sometimes is just too nice at the offensive line positions that he plays. At guard, at tackle, you got to have that mean streak. You got to want to put a guy in the dirt and then just pounce on him. You got to want to smash a guy and then go to the second level looking for more trouble. Sometimes I think he's just content with being in the way. And when you're content with being in the way, you can be a solid player, but you'll never take it to that next level. And I think Edmund Cook-Billa is a guard that could be a starter for you, but I wouldn't be surprised if this guy is simply depth along your offensive line because he doesn't wow me. I don't look at Edmund Cook-Billa and say, wow, you got yourself a mauler, a guy that's going to come in and change the game on the offensive line. You got a solid player who is not raw, but still has a lot to learn. He's a guy that comes from a different country, and so he's still learning some of the nuances of the offensive line positions that he plays, but he knows enough about the positions to be better at it. And I just think that this guy isn't what you're looking for in terms of having that nasty streak and being able to take it to that next level. We'll see. Maybe he'll flip the script on me and get to the National Football League, get coached up, and they'll be able to pull that nasty streak out of him. But to me, either you have it or you don't. You don't teach a guy to get nasty on the offensive line. Either you already come pre-assembled nasty or you don't. And I don't think this guy came pre-assembled nasty. I think he's a really nice guy. When he was packaged up, he was a nice guy with a smile on his face. And in this league, nice guys finish last. But for me, 4th round, 108th overall selection, guard out of Valdosta State, Edmund Cook-Billa is a double. Nothing wrong with being a nice guy. As long as you do your job and do it well, I have no problems with that. But it's the nasty guys that get it done in this league, in the trenches. I don't think Edmund Cook-Billa is that. We go to the 5th round, pick 148, A.J. Klein, linebacker out of Iowa State. I absolutely love A.J. Klein. Give me the guy that's always around the football. Give me the guy that trusts his eyes. Not enough players trust what they see. They see something. They think they know what they see. They're not sure. They're hesitant. Guys who hesitate don't make plays in this league. He who hesitates is last. Remember that. A.J. Klein isn't that guy that hesitates. He sees it. He diagnoses it. He goes. That's how you get in the backfield. That's how you get a 3-yard loss on 1st and 10 when they try to run the football. That's how you make it 2nd and 13 instead of 2nd and 7. Because you see it, you diagnose it, you get in the backfield, you make something happen, you blow it up. A.J. Klein does that. At 4'6", 40, running that in the 40, I love it. And they talk about him not having the straight line speed to run plays down from behind. Nonsense. Why do you need to run a play down from behind when you already saw it happening and you're already there when it's happening? That's A.J. Klein. He made plays. He's always around the football. He sees it. He diagnoses it. He gets to the football. Now at 6'1", not the biggest guy in the world. I don't care because he has the instincts. That's what I love. Give me the guy with instincts that's not afraid to trust what he sees and go and make a play. And that's what A.J. Klein does on a consistent basis. He sniffs out screen. He's there before the offensive lineman can get out there, get in front, and get in the way. He's already there, besting the play up. He reads draw. He's in the backfield, blowing the play up, screaming it out to his teammates. Draw! Draw! He's all over the play. It's play action fake. He's already back into his drop. He knows where he's supposed to be, and he's there when he's supposed to be there. It's a pass. His responsibility is to chuck this receiver off of their path. He's already there. He's 2 steps ahead of the offensive team when they're running their plays. He's a guy that's out executing the offense. He's always thinking 1 step ahead of his opposition. I love A.J. Klein and what he brings to the table. Is he the most athletic guy? No, he's not. But what he lacks in athleticism, he brings to the table in instincts and trusting his eyes. And for that, A.J. Klein, for me, linebacker out of Iowa State in the 5th round, is a triple because this guy knows how to play the linebacker position. He's tough as nails. He's not going to allow a guy to come in and smash him and run out of the way in a hole. He's going to meet contact head on. If he's supposed to be in the A-gap taking on the fullback, he's in the A-gap taking on the fullback. And it might be 2 yards in the backfield if you mess around with A.J. Klein and he diagnoses the play on time. That might be 2 yards in the backfield. That running back might have to go around that fullback to try and make something happen. And then here comes Star Lotulelei cleaning him up on the backside of that run. So you could be really forging some good stuff here at the linebacker position. We already know what you were able to do last year with your first pick, Luke Kuechly. You add a guy like A.J. Klein to what you already have, John Beeson. Hopefully he can stay healthy. You've got a lot of guys on your team that are always injured. Beeson, always injured. Thomas Davis, always injured. If you could just stay relatively healthy on your linebacking corps, add a guy like A.J. Klein to the mix, you could have a dangerous linebacking corps, especially with what you're trying to do up front now. If these big hogs up front take care of business, these linebackers will be allowed to roam around the field freely. And we know what Luke Kuechly can do when he's uncovered at the linebacker position. Add A.J. Klein to that mix. I like this draft pick by the Carolina Panthers. It's a triple for me. Let's go to the needs board and see what the Panthers were able to take care of. They get Edmund Cookbilla at guard, which meets an offensive line need. So Panthers still have a couple of needs to consider on their board with 1 pick remaining in this draft. So now we wrap up this Carolina Panthers draft in the 6th round, pick 182, running back out of Oregon, Kenjon Barner. Look, there's a lot of things you can go to Oregon for. They're a very athletic team. They run that up-tempo offense when Chip Kelly was there. A lot of things you can go to Oregon for. Running back is one of them. And look, before I even get into this pick, because I like the pick, this is a running back. You notice up here on the needs board, running back is not a position of need. Now, I will preference this by saying, I don't trust Jonathan Stewart because Jonathan Stewart does not stay healthy. You can't pencil in Jonathan Stewart for 16 games. You'll get lucky if he gives you 12 games in a season because he's oft injured. Now, with that being said, there are other pressing needs on this football team. Now, in the 6th round, don't know if safety was something you wanted to attack. But at 182, a guy like Bakari Rambo was available. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Now, I know he had some off-the-field issues. Don't know if that scared the Panthers away or not. Don't even know if he was on their radar. But you needed some safety help. There were some cornerbacks out there to be had in the 6th round. Also, some receivers out there that you could have took a chance on. So, I'm not really sure what the Panthers were trying to do and if they just took the best player available on their board or not. But you did have some needs. This is my thing. When are you going to give Cam Newton those weapons that I talked about? How many years are you going to have Cam Newton throwing to 2 tight ends and a receiver and a half? How long is that going to continue to go on? All right. So there's no more Jeremy Shockey out there. So now he's only throwing to Olsen at the tight end position. He's got Steve Smith. Steve Smith isn't getting any younger, yet he's not slowing down, so that's a great thing for you. But Steve Smith is, 32, 33 years old, and then you got Brandon LaFell, which I trust, but only to a certain extent. So when are you going to get Cam Newton those weapons that I talked about? See, it's okay to go, defensive tackle in the first 2 rounds. What about that receiver? Now, look, this is the last thing I'm going to say on this, and then I'm going to get to Kenyon Bonner and move on. But look, I'm not a guy that wants you to draft players just for the sake of drafting players. And that's what you've done at the wide receiver position. You've drafted receivers just for the sake of drafting receivers. And I can respect Dave Gettleman for not doing that. That's something that your ex-GM used to do a lot of. Okay? He did a lot of drafting players for the sake of drafting players. Marty Hurney did a lot of that. Okay? So you want to stay clear of the Geddeses, of the Polaris. You want to stay clear of those guys. You want to stay clear of Amani Edwards. Okay? And so I don't have a problem with you skipping the receiver position if you're not going to get something elite at the top half of the draft. I get it. But when are you going to make that move to get something that Cam Newton can hang his hat on? You should be grooming the replacement to Steve Smith right now because Steve isn't going to be around for that much longer. So that guy should have been in here learning the tricks of the trade, learning everything there is to know about being an elite receiver in this league from Steve Smith right now. You're wasting valuable time getting that guy in here now. So I said that to say this. You want Cam Newton to take that next step, you need to get that man some help out wide. Now let's look at Kenjon Bonner, running back out of Oregon. 5'9", about 200 pounds, runs a 4.5 40, but he can get up there. You give this guy some space, he's one of those guys that's deceptively fast. You get him out of space, most likely you're not going to catch him. If he gets to run in a straight line, you're probably not going to catch this guy from behind. Very fast, a lot of explosion and burst. He's a guy that sticks his foot in the ground, and once he goes, he's gone. So I like that aspect. And again, having a back in your backfield, and look, I don't know who this pick is indicative of, if it's indicative of how they feel about one of the other backs in the backfield, or do they just want to stack this backfield? You already got Tolbert back there. You already got D'Angelo Williams, who I think you did not use enough of in 2012. He took a reduced pay, took a little pay cut to come back and play for the Panthers, so that's great. I think that's a guy that you need. Is Jonathan Stewart the one that you're worried about? Because that's the one I'm worried about. Is that the one you're worried about? Because most teams aren't carrying 4 and 5 backs on their team. You get 3, unless one of those guys is playing some mean special teams. A lot of times you're not carrying 4 running backs on your football team. Now, again, you might consider Mike Tolbert a fullback, and so that kind of cleans up that situation. And I'm pretty sure that's what Mike Tolbert is classified as. But look, Mike Tolbert is a guy that you can hand the football off to, can throw it to out of the backfield. He's much like a running back, except he's at the fullback position. But I think Kenjon Bonner is a guy you get for insurance because I don't trust Jonathan Stewart to stay healthy, and he gives you added value in the returns game. You need more explosion on kickoffs, on punts. Kenjon Bonner can give you exactly that. The Oregon backfield was loaded for years, and this guy wasn't getting starters carries until his senior season in 2012 when he exploded for 280 carries, over 1,700 yards rushing, and 21 touchdowns in 2012. So when he got the ball like a workhorse back, he produced like a workhorse back. But before then, when you had guys littered in that backfield, like LaMichael James, this guy wasn't getting starter carries. He had to make his mark on special teams, and he did a wonderful job of doing exactly that. So Kenjon Barner is a guy that you have to look out for at the running back position. And I think the Panthers have gotten another guy that can help you out of the backfield. But I asked and posed the question, what about receiver? But I like this pick. Here's a guy that's going to help you in more than one way. He can catch it out of the backfield. We know he can run the football. And he can help you in special teams. So you're getting a lot of help in different areas here with Kenjon Barner. And so in the 6th round, 182nd pick in the draft, running back out of Oregon, Kenjon Barner for me is another triple, which means you look at this draft as a whole for the Panthers. Starla Tulele, home run. K'Wan Short, triple. Edmund Cookbilla, a double. A.J. Klein, a triple. Kenjon Barner, a triple. It is a triple for the Carolina Panthers. The only gripes that I have, you didn't have a lot of picks, so I'll cut you some slack there. It's only 5 picks here. Not a lot to work with. So very condensed draft, but you got a lot of quality in what you did select. So hard for you to really take care of every need that's on this board because, again, I want quality. I don't want a whole bunch of stuff. Don't get a cornerback that you don't believe in. Don't get a safety or receiver that you don't believe in just because you need help at that position. If you load up on other positions with good players, that's what I'm all about. Get guys that are good football players. Find somewhere for them to play on the football field. We'll figure out when we'll get a receiver down the road if that's necessary. We'll figure out how to get our hands on a starting caliber cornerback and a starting safety down the road. Don't just pick players for the sake of picking players because you have a need. This is the best quote I've ever heard in a draft before. Brian Billick once told me, do not let need be an evaluator of talent. When you start to do that, you water down your roster and you become a bad football team. Brian Billick told me, do not let need become an evaluator of talent. Remember that. And that's what the Panthers did not do in this draft. They did not let need be an evaluator of talent for them. That's how you water down your roster and become a bad football team. Get quality players. Do not reach for guys because you have a need. So I'm not mad that they didn't get a receiver because if you're not going to take one in the first 2 rounds, don't worry about it. Don't start reaching for stuff. Even though there were more quality players in this draft, after the 2nd round, which you didn't select one, you don't have a 3rd rounder. Now you start to get in that second half of the draft. Now you start getting guys with question marks. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You'll get it on the next time. Don't worry about it. You'll catch that on the rebound. You'll get it next time. So you look at this draft as a whole. It's a triple for the Panthers. Very condensed draft. Only 5 picks, but they made the most out of those 5 picks. The most questionable pick here, Edmund Cookbilla. Everything else you have on this board, I'm absolutely in love with it. Triples all the way across. Edmund Cookbilla only doubled on this board. So you did a great job of taking care of getting good football players. I think every one of these players will be on your roster after their first contract is up. Maybe with the exception of Edmund Cookbilla. If guys stay relatively healthy, you'll be happy with the production you get out of these players. And that's what it's all about in the National Football League. Getting production out of guys that you draft and making sure that 5 or 6 years down the road, they're still on your roster. That's going to do it for the Carolina Panthers in the 2013 draft wrap-up.
Draft Zone.